Building a diverse tech or startup ecosystem requires a mindset shift from many players: investors, accelerators, conference organizers, startup communities, and more. The theme for Black History Month 2023 is Time for Change, Action, not Words. Well, in this episode, I'm so excited to be talking to Leke Sholuade, an interesting tech entrepreneur who is building a Black Valley, a community joining the dots within the startup ecosystem to promote more diversity through action. Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups live show. I'm Naili Makangur from Athena Leaders. As a tech consultant and startup advisor, I will answer live the burning question that you have on your journey to Series A+. Subscribe and tune in every week for top tips to meet amazing guests, startup founders, investors, and more. And more importantly, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Leke, it's been such a long time since we've been planning this episode, and I'm really excited to have you and to just go deep into the story of Black Valley. The first question I have today is something that I've seen you talk about before, and I just thought that would be a really way to start. Why do we need a Black Valley?
Thank you, first of all, so much for having me, and thank you for your patience as well in terms of us speaking. As you know, life of an entrepreneur can be quite hectic, so I'm grateful for you being patient within this process. Really great question to start with in terms of why do we need a Black Valley, and that's something that's very dear to my heart. Like most people from a Black ethnic background, 2020 was a time that we had to ask ourselves hard questions in terms of where society was and the advancement that we've seen in the Black community. For me, that period of time was a really important time to kind of like really create change that advanced the Black community. And the reason we need a Black Valley is to facilitate that change, especially within the tech startup ecosystem. As we're quite aware of, people talk about it and we see that feature here now. Like, tech is the future. The way we live our life, how we work, how we interact, how we make money, how we spend money, what money looks like, everything is becoming digitalized, right? And unfortunately, at the moment, it's only a certain demographic that's building those products and services that serves the global majority. So when we're talking about biases and racism and stereotypes, if we're not careful, the digital age and digital world is where we're going to experience that. So for me, it's important to create a Black Valley, a system/ecosystem that supports Black talent to thrive in building the digital creators of tomorrow within the tech startup ecosystem.
So how do you do that via Black Valley?
Yes, so there's two things we do, and that's really important in Black Valley, and it's probably important to share like the journey on how we arrived there. So for us, we led with the problem. What is the problem that Black talent are facing when it comes to having experience and exposure to working at great startups and to building great tech companies? For talent, we realized there's actually a lot of interest within the Black community in working in this space. There are a lot of people that have ambition on how to work in the space, but actually they don't have the right network, in terms of what the job roles looks like and what sort of jobs they could do. So we created a mentoring program, that we paired exciting Black talent with people already working within the ecosystem at top tech companies like your Google, your Meta, your Microsoft. And what we realized just through that mentorship, the experienced talent is able to mentor the young talent into roles within an 8-week period. And we've successfully been doing that. And we're able to support 260 talents and with varying degrees of success, people landing roles. Doing that process as well, Black founders start coming to us as well, saying, actually, you know what? We have great ideas. Can you introduce us to a mentor to help us get access to funding? And you people within the ecosystem, we know that there is shocking stats that show lack of equity when it comes to Black founders raising money in comparison to our white counterparts. So what we did then, we designed an accelerator program that tries to tackle that issue, by bringing it better, the best investors, supporting Black founders, the best mentors, people that are capable executors that either successfully like exited their companies before or successfully raised. We brought them together, partners as well that are passionate about this issue. We brought them together. So the whole goal of the ecosystem then is to support early stage Black founders to solve that problem of lack of access to capital. Now, that might seem like a minute issue, but actually it's a very important one, because if you're a startup founder, money is your lifeblood. And if you don't have access to that money, it's unlikely you'll be able to build your products. If you can build that product, you're not in the game. So it's about how can we level the playing field by really, giving Black founders access to funding so they could go ahead and build the next Google, build the next Meta, build the next Facebook, build the next OpenAI. OpenAI is quite popular at the moment, but they've been backrolled by Microsoft. We see why it's important to make sure we're creating equal opportunities for Black founders when it comes to accessing capital.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And in fact, a lot of the interviews I've done when we talked about this idea of getting funding, it's really crucial for startups. Yeah, the proportion that goes to Black founder is quite low. And the other thing I love about Black Valley and what attracted me when I researched you was the two aspects that you've mentioned. On one hand, really helping the startups founders, because they are the employers in the bigger companies for the future. And on the other hand as well, how do we get more people into tech? In fact, I love mentoring, and I've done a lot of mentoring. I think Black Girls in Tech, I think it's a UK-based group, and I mentored for them. And I'm really passionate about kind of mentoring and giving back. Now, one thing that's quite interesting is when, I was researching you. So like I said to people, I try to go as deep as possible, leaving no stones unturned. And I found out something really interesting. So today, your work and your passion is really about enabling people in technology, but your own love stories with technology didn't go according to plan, at least the first time round. I found out that, of course, you've got a degree in psychology, but you also did a stint in engineering. Can you talk us a bit about that and your experience, of course, because I believe that could have been the seeds for what you are doing today.
No, that's actually very interesting. Not a lot of people know that. So you definitely have done your research. Be quite transparent. So I'm a Nigerian migrant. And when it came to choosing a career, it's either you're a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer.
Yes.
My dad was a chemical engineer as well. So for me, it made sense as a career. But if I was actually honest with myself, it wasn't necessarily like things that came natural to me. Here in the UK, we do A-levels. So I did my A-levels in psychology, biology, and chemistry. And psychology was more my strong a passion of mine. But I felt like it's more likely that I would make more money going down the chemical engineering route. And I decided to go down the engineering route. And I realized, luckily, whilst I was doing my degree program in the first year of uni, you meet a lot of people. And I would always be speaking to people that were doing psychology and find out a bit more about, so what are you studying? What are you doing? This sounds interesting. And it kind of just really like a transition period where I just realized, actually, I'm not that passionate about the sort of jobs that chemical engineering would lead to, which is more laboratory work. Where my passion lies, I think, as you mentioned, is actually getting the best out of people and trying to understand people's story and where they're going to. And that's what I loved about psychology, talking about adolescents, how does your childhood, influence who you are today? What are the behaviors that you picked up? How can you, how do you get motivated as an individual? Those are my true passion. So I decided to make that transition into psychology. And I think that's probably one of the best decisions I've made, actually. And there's been things as a result of that's helped me and we've been able to implement in Black Valley. One thing that motivated the theory of change in Black Valley is this idea around schemas. So in psychology, there's this idea that we all have schemas, right? So schema, basically, the simplest way to explain that is we all have like a invisible glass that we wear that we see the world through. And that invisible glass is basically based on our lived experience. So for example, as mentioned, I'm a Nigerian migrant that's living in the UK. There are things that are unique to me that means I see the world a certain way. And when it comes to stereotype and biases, people's lived experience is the schemas they're seeing the world through. And it's quite difficult to change that. And the best way to change that is provide challenging options. So if you have a stereotype that, Black people act this way, if someone presents to you information consistently that different to that, that's the best way to change the schema. And that's one thing that I was really keen to implementing to developing the Black Valley. Because actually, yes, there's not enough Black founders building tech products and raising money and building those unicorns when we started. but it was important for us to showcase the ones that were there. So within the Black Valley program, what we do is every week, as part of like the design of the program, we have great Black founders that have exited companies or building great companies, speaking to our founders, right? So challenging their stereotype of what a successful founder look like. You know, we've had people like Topper from Calendly speak to our founders. It's great for them to see those founders, or even people that early on, you know, a great founder in the UK scene at the moment, Josephine running a fashion sustainability company called Sojo, speaking to them about hers, you know, as well. So again, it's taking those learnings that probably seemed insignificant back then into the program that we've designed.
And that, definitely, I absolutely love what you said. And one of the things that I didn't even know myself, I think it was sometimes last year, really, when I started, I was kind of researching startup journey, especially of Black founders. Calendly is one of the tools that is used, I mean, all over the world. Every other person I speak to, especially in the professional world, has used Calendly. But honestly, is what you don't even know who the founder is, and let alone, it didn't even cross my mind that the founder of Calendly was a Black person. So I think it's nice to have that representation, because I believe that if nothing else, it helps to other people, you know, despite the challenges that they might get through, whether it's to get funding or to grow as a young person, to see that, yes, I can push through, and with action, we can start changing the negative stereotypes and I mean, the world that we live in.
Yeah, 100%. And that visibility, right, matters. You know, people say sometimes I think it's difficult to be what you can't see. You know, if people around you are not founders, or if everything that you heard, and I think it's important to like state the problem, which is at the moment, the current climate, it's difficult to raise money as a Black founder. But at the same time, it's important to showcase the brilliant Black founders that are building tech companies that are either raising money or actually doing it, you know, by bootstrapping. And because then that will challenge those stereotypes as well, and actually would motivate you to feel like you can play this game, and this game is for you to play, because you see someone that looks like you that's playing the game and is winning in the game.
Yeah. Now, another thing that I found quite interesting as well is when you look at, you know, your website, the work that you do, because I follow Black Valley myself, and how the size of the cohort is growing, and also the numbers of great mentors that you've managed to attract from, you know, big companies and different race. Absolutely everything is available in terms of support there. Was that the way it was the first day you opened the door, when you thought, okay, I'm going to do Black Valley, especially the first part, the career accelerators, I've got a great idea? Were you flooded with interest from people, or did you have to do a bit of groundwork to go and attract the people?
That's a great question. And actually, that's something that you learn as you go along. So I worked in tech, but again, I wasn't necessarily working for your big tech companies. You know, I worked for a small startup in education tech company. So when it comes to my network, I didn't have people working at Google, Facebook, or Microsoft. So I had to start with what I knew and the people I knew. And to understand what was really helpful at the early stage of Black Valley is we were able to get people that are passionate about the mission of what we're trying to do. People that they might not be Black themselves, but they really believed in like making the space more diverse. They've seen through their experience that and recognize the problem of lack of diversity when it comes to creating products that really serves the global majority, and they wanted to be part of the solution. And they were willing not only to give their time, but to share about us. So at that early stage, we were able to amplify our work through social media. So to simply put it, what we did early on was every time we got someone on board, and recalling those early stages, actually, I spoke to everyone, and I still do actually, before they joined the Black Valley community as a mentor. So I will speak to them, find out a bit more about their background, you know, state our mission, why are they passionate about that, and why they wanted to join. So, you know, when we did get people on board as mentors, they weren't just random because they worked at Google or Facebook. There were people that work at Google or Facebook, sorry, Meta now, I should say, but they were really passionate as well about the issue. And when they became mentors, we would, you know, shout about them that this person is giving their time to mentor the Black Valley program, and they would then, you know, share about our mission to the network as well. And then people kept coming to us. You know, we've actually paused taking on mentors because we have so much people want to give their time to support what we do. Currently, we have 300 plus mentors that we feel at the moment, based on our operation, we can utilize them. It's a really interesting problem to have. Like a lot more people want to help us. So how do we, well, maintain the people that we have and make sure we're utilizing them first before we open that pool of mentors up again?
That's a good place to be, but I can also imagine how labor intensive or time intensive it was to have to go through all of those interviews. Why did you felt like it was necessary for you to personally talk to every single mentors that come on the program, especially at the earlier days?
Yeah, good question. I think one, I didn't know, if I'm being honest, I didn't know another way to do it. As a founder, you're so passionate about this idea that you have one, and you just want to get the job done. And for me, getting the job done means getting the right people on board. And for me to get the right people on board, the only way I knew to do that was to share our story and find out a bit more about them. And we've actually said no to people, not because they weren't great at their job or they weren't great people, but just because we felt there wasn't the right fit. We didn't feel, based on the conversation, the mission was as important to them, as we wanted people to be on board. And those early days, sometimes, I was, because it is quite an issue that has to be close to you as a person, right? And again, it doesn't matter your background, but you need to feel strongly enough that this is something that's important in the world. This is a wrong that you want to do something to make right. And the best way you can't really get that across, at those early stage, based on a type form application that people say, I want to be a mentor because I'm about this many years experience, and I've seen, this issue affecting this community. I need to see you speak about that. I need to see why that's important to you. Because at the end of the day, the way our mentorship work is quite intense. It's one-to-one. We're trusting you with a underserved community that to pour into them. And I use that word pour, which is a mentorship then, right? You're pouring not just your knowledge, you're pouring into them in terms of motivation, how to navigate careers, so you need to be able to pour the right thing into them. So it's really important. And that's why you could tell that mentorship is something that I think is really key in terms of helping people to grow. And I don't think everyone cannot be a mentor, but the right people could really change the game for individuals. And I've had that experience myself, and I've been a mentor myself as when I've been mentored. So I know why this is so important.
Yeah, that's honestly, I can see your passion, and I definitely agree. I think mentoring is such a key skill. A lot of people can say that they can be mentors, but if the passion and the mission is not aligned with what you're doing, as you said, it could be an application on type form, but it's not the same. And I can see there's quite a few people watching us right now, and thank you for everybody who put messages on the chat. So welcome to the show. And again, I would like to for you to join the conversation a bit. And if you have any question on mentoring, or if you have an experience that where you've mentored someone and what you've taken out of that, if you can please share that, so that we can even attract even more exciting mentors at Black Valley. Yes, don't worry. I'm sure that they will sort out the issue that they have at the moment, because I can see that going from strength to strength. The next thing I want to look at, again, you've talked about the mentors, but what about from the mentee's perspective? Now, one thing is interesting is that you help people to get their first steps into careers in tech, but on the other side, you also work with startup founders. Let's look at the tech aspect first. At the moment, everywhere you go, they talk about talent shortage. There's not enough engineers, there's not enough UX designer, all of that. Why do you think that even though we do have plenty of roles, there's still something there, like a bit of a gap that is stopping to increase the number of Black talents into the tech industry?
Again, that's a great question. It's an exciting stage, I think, current climate-wise, to want to get into a career in tech. There are loads of exciting new opportunities. That means actually there'll be more new roles that we're finding out about opening up within the sector. I think there's more opportunities for people to actually explore different kind of careers within the sector. One barrier, again, is this socio-economic background that people might be a network issue. So that's social capital. If you think about yourself as a person, and when you decided what career looks good for you, I mentioned earlier, I wanted to be an engineer. Why? Because my dad was an engineer. That's all I knew. So if you're a kid, you look at your network, either that's your friends, your uncles, people that you interact with. What career are they doing currently? And that's probably what you want to do. That's one thing. The second thing, actually, again, if you close your eyes, and people watching this live at the moment as well, and ask you, what does a software developer look like in your mind? you have an image
Yes,
in your head.
wow.
That image
Definitely
represents
long
you.
hair getting there.
So there's that scheme already about what does representation within that industry look like. So, and I think we're getting to the stage where we're seeing more great Black talent working at great companies and becoming more visible. And we need more of that to inspire the next generation. I think that's really, really important. And then the third thing, which is probably like appetite for risk as well. So what I mean by that, I think that probably linked towards more to founders. But when we look at our, especially, migrant generation or people of Afro-Caribbean descent, safety is really important to us. And what that safety looks like is what we consider like, the careers that are familiar within our generation. So, if you are someone that has a lot of ambition, you're more likely to aspire to be a doctor, a lawyer, and those sort of careers, right? So there's probably a mindset shift that's needed, and to expand around this new lucrative new economy that people could explore, and just making that more visible. Then on the other side as well, there's more that needs to be done from the employer side, because one of the things the employers say, and I've heard that a lot, is there's not enough people coming through the pipeline, which I don't agree with, because we see a lot of great people every time that are interested in this role. And it's more around, how do you make sure you're diversifying where you're applying, where you're looking for people? How do you make sure you're just being creative and reaching out to people and meeting them where they are, and to getting them into the roles, really? So I mentioned a lot of things there, and I'll break them down probably into maybe two things just for ease. One is like what we know and what we see around us, and the second thing is from the employer side of things, how do they diversify where they're looking for talent as well?
Yeah, it reminds me actually of a story of when I was younger. I mean, don't know if you know, but I started my life as a software engineer. And of course, now I work with I work with startups and help them grow, build a product, and all of that. That's my first. Well, when I tried to go for higher education, the first one I did was business studies. But again, it goes back to what you know, right? My dad was working in banking, and I loved and my aunt, she used to work like a PA, so I knew that the world is about business. So it made sense for me to do business studies. And in fact, coming from another country myself as well, when you go and ask for services or help at the career services, all they say is, "Oh, just do business, you'll be fine." But my brain wasn't really geared to business, because I've always been a kind of, if I learn something, I have to put into practice. And I felt like business was, what is microeconomics? What is this? Too many, hypothetical things. And I got into software engineer by mistake because of a random woman. I'll never forget that woman. She was in one of the classes when I was learning English on the side. And she used to live in the US, from Russian background. And she was an engineer, software engineer. So I talked to her about, I was looking for something that I can practice. And she says, "Why don't you learn Java?" So I went and asked my mom for money. And I said, "Mom, I need 50 pounds. And she's like, "Oh, great. My child is going shopping," because she knew I hate shopping even today. And I used the first 50 pounds to buy one of my book. And I self-studied Java. And that's how I then went to uni and became an engineer. Now, going back to what you've said, if you don't have, although there are many, the work is there and the talents are there, sometimes people around you affect the kind of career you go. And if you don't bump into someone like miraculously, like I bumped into that woman, I probably would never have been a software engineer myself. And I might have done something else, but my heart would have been like, maybe that's not the right thing for me to do.
That's amazing. I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. And that's exactly what it is, right? Those random encounters, those visibility, like someone just opened your eyes to something that's completely new. A story that I actually wanted to share as well. Like when I was younger, as crazy as it sounds, I was at a stage where I was thinking about life choices. University wasn't an option for me, just because my grades wasn't that great, and I was, messing around in school. And that was my first introduction to mentorship. Actually, I was 15 slash going on 16, and a family friend started staying with us, and he asked me, "Have you thought about university?" And that question just opened up my world, And it's interesting, right? It wasn't like starting down with me an hour a day or whatever. Literally, I said, "Have you thought about university?" I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean? You think I could go to university?" And like, yeah, and we carried on having conversations, and he would encourage me, saying, "Oh, you could do it. I believe in you," and stuff like that. And again, to me, that's a level of mentorship. It's about like just opening up opportunities to someone that they might not be aware of. And I think we owe it to ourselves to make sure we open the door for the people. And it's great for me to be running a company in Black Valley that does that, especially for the Black community.
Yeah, again, incredible story there. Yeah. And to anyone watching, again, ask another question for you. If you have been mentored, then put a thumbs up on the chat or a thumbs down if you've never been mentored, because we really want to push as many people out there to see that it's actually okay to go and look for mentors throughout your life. As this is something very positive that you need. In the meantime, whilst you are responding to that question, there is one question that came in the chat earlier, and I'm going to read it out for you. It's quite interesting that I was looking at Black Valley this morning. My question is, what are the key attributes and skills you look for in new recruits joining your team? Okay, it's a very interesting question.
Very interesting question. Thank you for asking the question, Najila. I hope I said your name right. I guess there's maybe two dynamics to that. So in Black Valley, we have what we call like a core team. And I should say this, right? When it comes to a great mission-driven company like Black Valley, the founder gets all like the attention, actually, but there's a great team behind him driving the work that he does. And we are probably one of the best team, I think, in Black Valley. We have a full-time staff member alongside myself leading our programs. We have some incredible volunteers that have full-time job and will give their time to serve the Black Valley mission. So that's what we call our core team. And it's a small team. I'm currently a team of 6 people. The key thing, again, that I look for in that role is probably consistent with what I look for in our volunteer community as mentors, right? But the main important thing around that is, again, do you care about the mission? It's not this thing is about creating lasting change. In the next 20, 30 years, we want to see a world where Black people are better represented, creating these technology products, being the voices, generating wealth as startup founders. Why does that resonate with you? What is important to you about that? And there's no wrong answer to that question, but your answer will reveal why you want to be part of it. So that's one thing that I look for. So your why for wanting to join Black Valley. And then the other thing is around commitment. We're lucky, I think, a lot of people want to give their time to serve a great cause like Black Valley. But actually, when it comes to doing the day-to-day, what that looks like, there's not enough consistency. So for us, it's commitment that shows itself up with that, being consistent for us over a period of time. And then now we're evolving as a company as well. Initially, it was an idea in my head with a couple of people volunteering, and actually it's developing into a full-grown business in itself. So there's a different level of skill set that we're needing. And if there's anyone watching this, we're actually looking for people to join us in a leadership capacity who could work with us around partnerships and around marketing. So if there's anyone want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, please feel free to reach out. In terms of our volunteer team, so our mentoring capacity, either as talent or as founders, the main thing is having like 2 to 3 years experience within your field. So that's kind of like one of our minimum criteria. And then it's about your passion for wanting to support. And then the commitment is less. It's more during the period of the program. So the founders program run for an 8-week period. The mentorship program ran for an 8-week period as well. But we want to reimagine what that looks like. When we're doing the mentoring program, we're running 40 at a time, which is great. I mean, we were able to do 7 quarters of that, supporting 260 people in less than 2 years. But actually, we want to scale that impact a bit more and see whether we can deliver more. So we're just going through that process a bit more at the moment. I hope that answers your question, and thank you for asking that question, really.
Yeah, and Ejila replied saying that I'll be reaching out, and she replied with a follow-up question. Good answer, caring about the mission and creating lasting changes. Thank you. Follow-up question. What were the main challenges when you got started with Black Valley?
Oh, I could write a book on this. There were loads of challenges, and there are still challenges around it. I think for me, it's fair. Fair is actually a big thing. I should probably could tell, like, I like psychology. I like, getting into my own head and where I am, what I'm thinking about. And actually, there's a lot of like limiting beliefs that we all have about ourselves. And, it's up to you to challenge that. My limiting beliefs were, oh, I've got this vision. Do I have the skills, the capacity, the network to deliver on it? and I'm a person of faith as well, if it's okay to share that. But I'm someone that
Yeah, of
believes
course.
that if God's giving you a vision, everything within you to deliver on that vision is either it will give that skill set to you, or it will surround you with those people to help you deliver around that. So for me, to be really practical, I think it's just stepping out in faith. Like there's no, you could write a business plan, this is how we're going to do year one, quarter one, quarter two. You just have to step out. And to use a biblical example, is that, for those that, might be familiar with the story about Jesus walking on water, asking one of his disciples, Peter, to step on out of the boat. It's literally that. And then starting anything, it's like, you have to step out of that boat and, to bring it back to reality. That boat is our comfort zone. And we all have things that we're comfortable with. I was comfortable with my 9 to 5, having a clear agenda, what my day looks like. And actually from that and venturing into like world of entrepreneur, when you're not sure whether it's going to work, whether people will come in on it, whether you're able to deliver, a lot of new learnings, and a lot of fear around that. So I think the first thing is just step out in faith and get out of that comfort zone. And the comfort zone, I'm preaching a little bit, apologies, but just example, and we all have like this thing.
Well, sorry to stop you there, but you say I'm preaching, but I think that is, I just really want to reinforce the point you're making there, especially this idea of stepping out of the boat, stepping out of the comfort zone. There are so many people that I've seen, whether it's through my work as a mentor for startup or even before, that they never really know their full potential because of the what ifs and because they never step out of the boat. They have 100%. A clear vision. They know they have a lot of different skills, but the one thing that stops them is that step. It might sound like, preaching, but it's actually true what you're saying.
It's true. And I'll share these two things again, where I used to share, because again, I was a mentor mentoring young people. And I used to share this point. It's around like the rubber band, like if anyone has ever have a rubber band, either, the job of a rubber band, like there's an actual size, but you could stretch it. And the more you stretch it, the more the size grows. And that's with us, with our comfort zone, right? And we just need to be careful not to stretch to the breaking point. And I think there's a balance between pushing yourself, stepping out, and making sure you give yourself space to relax and not break. And you would know that it's just that right level of tension, and it's figuring that out. And that comes with timing, really. And the right people, again, there's nothing new. This is not the first time someone's going to start something like Black Valley. So there are people that have done something similar. And actually, you don't need to reimagine the wheel. It's more around shaping how to deliver, learning from others as well, around that. Hopefully that makes sense to people watching as well.
Yeah, and what would you say about the stretching the rubber band? I feel like, we talk a lot about anxiety these days, and which is, again, is true. And I'm glad that we do. One thing that I've learned throughout my life is that, if you want to step out of the boat or live the life that you want, anxiety will always be around. But one thing you learn is the more you go through anxiety, you meet it hands-on, face to face, the more you push it forward. The noise is in your head, but you learn to quiet it down and to kind of keep going forward. So yes, it's really important to kind of have that perspective, as you beautifully put it today in our show. So thank you very, very, very much.
No worries, sorry. And what was that on that note? I feel like, we're getting to the motivational stage a bit. And another thing that I learned about,
go for it.
Was the transformation, from those that did biology, around like the metamorphosis, like a caterpillar goes through a butterfly, and that stage is not beautiful, right? Because the caterpillar is not a very beautiful animal, really, but butterfly is beautiful. But before that stage, it stays in like a cocoon before it actually develops. And most of us want to get to the butterfly stage without willing to go through that transformation. So I guess one of my lessons is, beautiful things takes time. And go through the stage of working it out and figuring it out. And whilst you're in the stage of figuring it out, in the weeds of things, as it's called, like, have a clear vision of what the outcome looks like, and that will keep you going, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Caterpillar first, and then you have a beautiful butterfly afterwards. Now, as we are getting towards the end of the show, one thing I also wanted to ask you is, what is your vision for Black Valley? Because, of course, like as I said before, people have seen you and have researched you for, from day one, when you first starting your first cohort, and seeing how beautifully everything is being, going forward and is growing. And every time I go back and see what you're doing, I can see that things will progress in a great way. So I'm really, really curious to know what you have in store for us, or at least, as part of your vision for the next few years.
Great question. And I'll say this as well. So my vision is to create a Black Valley. And I think earlier I mentioned about stepping out of the boat. One thing was initially when I started on delivering on like the vision was always to create a Black Valley. And what is that? A Black Valley basically is this ecosystem. And the way I vision it is like a one-stop shop. If you're a Black talent interested in either entering the world of tech or starting your own tech company, we have all the resources, network that supports you to get you from point A to B. And that's what we want to create, our own Black Valley. So within my limiting beliefs, I think when I first started it, I limited it to like a mentoring program, which is what I know how to do, right? My background is, mentoring, working in mentoring. So even though I had this big vision, it was like, oh, this is too big, like do what you know. But now actually we're stepping out of the boat to be more ourselves as a company, right? And we're going to create a Black Valley. And what that looks like is we have two clear streams of how we're going to do that. One is working with founders. So we've managed to create this, world-class accelerator program for early stage Black founders. And we've seen great results with that. We've worked with 25-led startups. 25% of those have raised money within 12 months. Very significant amount, actually, more than £1 million, which is great when we look at us as a company as well. So how can we increase the impact of that and serve the founders that need us more is one of our focus. And the best way to do that is, one, we need to create an ecosystem around them. So this year we're launching what we're calling Black Valley Nights, and it's a networking event for Black founders across the UK. And we're going to try and reach out globally at some point, but this year we're focusing on the UK, where once a month we meet at a venue to be confirmed, and founders and investors back in early stage Black founders would be in the room. Think about like a house party, but with a purpose. There's no pressure on founders to like pitch. There's no pressure on founders to, to be who they're not. Like it's very organic, and you actually meet people and you create on your own network, because we know network piece that needs to be solved to really move the needle in this scene, and we can create that network. So Black Valley will deliver on that by running this Black Valley Live once a month. Our accelerator program, we used to do it twice a year. We're going to reduce that to once a year to have more impact. What we mean by that is we're going to look at what do founders need to build their business. Who are the key companies and partnerships that we could form around that? So early stage founders, you need someone that's a PR expert, to help you tell your story. You need an accounting firm maybe to help you do your books, and you need a lawyer maybe to help you look at your the legals around your the contract that you have and things like that. Can we form key partnerships that serves you as a founder, as well as supporting you with money as well, and the mentorship that we already provide. So it's putting those pieces together and really being bold as a company and delivering on that. So if there's anyone watching as well that feel like they're a good expert within any of those areas and they could help us deliver on that vision, again, feel free to reach out. The second piece is around the talent piece. We mentioned earlier that one of the challenges around companies is that they feel like they can't find the talent. I'm like, they're everywhere. What do you mean you can't find them? So we're going to solve that problem for them by working with companies to actually recruit from the community, either people already within the Black Valley community or people that we know through our reach, either newsletter or social media. And then we're going to introduce training programs as well, and we're going to make it accessible. So what I mean by that is there are great training programs out there, but they're quite expensive. So we're going to limit that barrier by bringing those training programs to a price point, and bringing our 8-week mentorship program that works and combining that into like a really condensed version that you could come in, learn, get certification, and that like catapult you to the next level.
Wow, that's very, very, very exciting. And if anyone knows anybody that can come in and join in at all of the different points that Leke just mentioned, please do share the words. And we also on our social media, we definitely have a few posts coming up that will also promote some of the startups that were part of, some of the people that were part of your cohort as well. So I'm really excited about that. And adding to that as well, definitely I will personally be reaching out to you to see if there's any kind of partnership that we can do. I do tech and product mentoring for startups, and I'm also building a program that focuses mostly on building tech products from, using my software engineer background. How do you work with engineers, and how do you make sure that it's successful? And all of this question of even what the hell is an MVP? So this is the things that we are going to look at, and especially helping people at early stage and as they're scaling and they start thinking about hiring talent in the tech world. So I would definitely love to see, as you are building on Black Valley, see if there's anything that we can do. And I'm going to be in London, I think, in March. So if there's any time for a coffee, I would lovely to see you, to meet you face to face.
No, that'd be great. Please reach out. It would be great to catch a coffee. And if we have a Black Valley night, one of those days that you're in, we'd love to have you attend as well.
Yes, definitely. That will definitely go in my calendar for sure.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for this incredibly interesting talk, and I'm sure a lot of people, we had a lot of great comments on the chat that came in. A lot of thank you to you for your inspiration for today, and for people watching on different platforms as well. How can people find you if they want to kind of go and continue, and especially if they want to apply for a role as a mentor or as part of your team or as part of any of the great things that you've shared today?
Oh, thank you, first of all, for having me. Really great. Allow me to share my story and digging a bit deeper as well. Actually, I think it's interesting when you share a lot. So I've really enjoyed being part of it. And in terms of how people could connect, LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to connect with me personally at a professional level. So my name, as it shows there, Leke Sholuade on LinkedIn. Just put a note that you were listening to this, and it will help me filter a bit easier. And then in terms of joining the team, we're definitely looking for people that are skilled and could help us take us to the next level. Just drop us an email with info@blackvalley.co.uk, and we'll pick that up and just jump on the call with you to see how you could help and whether you're the right fit for us, really. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Leke. Thanks again for everybody watching. Do remember, as I've mentioned, we are still running our free tech product mentoring once every month at the last Friday of every month. So if you know a startup out there, whether they are starting out or they are already in the middle of their journey and they feel a bit stuck, get them to reach out to us. This month we'll focus, February, yes, started already. We'll focus on impact startups, both in terms of the mentoring sessions and as well in terms of the things and the theme that we have. So that we wanted to really start our impact month with Leke Sholuade as a guest, who, as I'm sure you agree, has been absolutely fantastic. In the meantime, do remember, let's design a happy and productive workplace playground together.
Thank you.